The dust cloud settled around Dr. Marcus Wright as he carefully brushed away the last bits of debris from the crystal. He had been digging in the ruins of Kepler 438b for 3 weeks now, and this was the first intact memory core he had found. The dead planet stretched endlessly in all directions, its red surface scarred by ancient wars and time itself. Marcus held the crystal up to the artificial light of his workstation. The core was roughly the size of his fist, made of a material that seemed to shift between blue and silver, depending on how he looked at it. Inside, tiny lights flickered like trapped stars. This was how the Kaleri had stored their information, their history, their final thoughts before they vanished from the galaxy 3 million years ago. "Found something interesting down there, Marcus?" The voice came from his comm unit. Commander Lisa Hayes was calling from the research ship Aurora, which orbited high above the planet. "Maybe," Marcus replied, not wanting to get too excited yet. "I've got a memory core. Looks like it might be from their final period. Bring it up. Kate wants to see anything from the end times." Marcus packed his tools and made his way back to the shuttle. The Kaleri had been an advanced race, far ahead of humans in technology. They had built cities that floated in the air, and ships that could cross the galaxy in days. Then suddenly they were gone. No bodies, no signs of battle, no clues about what happened. Just empty cities and silent worlds. The shuttle ride back to the Aurora took 20 minutes. Marcus spent the time staring at the crystal, wondering what secrets it held. The Kaleri were the 18th extinct civilization that humans had discovered. All of them had reached the stars, built great empires, and then vanished without a trace. It was one of the biggest mysteries in human space. EXPLORATION Dr. Kate Morrison was waiting for him in the archaeology lab when he arrived. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, known throughout the fleet for her ability to piece together the stories of dead civilizations. "Let me see it," she said, extending her hands. Marcus handed over the crystal. Kate held it, carefully, turning it over in her palms. "It's beautiful and heavy. These cores usually held their most important information. Can we read it? The ship's computer should be able to translate it. The Kaleri language is well documented." Kate placed the crystal into a scanning device. This might take a few minutes. While they waited, Marcus looked around the lab. The walls were covered with artifacts from a dozen different worlds. Pieces of metal from the Zephyrians, stone tablets from the Helix Collective, energy cells from the Void Dancers. All of them extinct, all of them mysteries. "Got it," Kate said. The scanner had finished its work. "The translation is coming through now." A holographic display appeared above the crystal. Text scrolled across it in English, translated from the Thea. Original Kaleri script. Marcus and Kate read in silence. "This is impossible," Kate whispered. The message was short but clear. It spoke of a great fear that had consumed the Kaleri people in their final days. They had discovered something that terrified them more than death itself. And that something was connected to a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. "Beware. The pale world, third from its star," the message read. "They guard something worse than death itself. We have seen the truth. We cannot return. The watchers must never sleep. The sleeper must never wake." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Kate, this is talking about Earth. I know." Kate's voice was barely a whisper. "But that's not the impossible part." She pulled up another holographic display. This one showed 17 other messages, all from different extinct civilizations. Marcus had never seen them before, but as he read, his blood ran cold. From the Zephyrians, "The blue world holds the eternal guard. Do not wake what sleeps beneath." From the Helix Collective, "The pale ones watch over the ancient prison. We have chosen to join them." From the Void Dancers, "Earth guards the sleeper. All who know must choose, watch or die. Every message was different, but they all said the same thing. They all warned about Earth. They all spoke of something that slept and something that guarded it. "Where did you get these?" Marcus asked. "From the files. Every expedition to an extinct world has found similar messages. Command has been collecting them for decades." Kate's hands were shaking slightly. "Marcus, what if we're not just explorers? What if we're something else?" Before Marcus could answer, his comm unit buzzed. Commander Hayes was calling. "Marcus, Kate, report to the bridge immediately. We're receiving a priority message from Earth Command." The bridge of the Aurora was a cramped space filled with displays and control panels. Commander Hayes stood at the center, her face grim. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and the kind of steady presence that made people trust her in dangerous situations. "We've been ordered to return to Earth," she announced. "Immediately." "What about the dig?" Marcus asked. "Abandoned. Earth Command wants to see what you found down there." Kate stepped forward. "Lisa, how much do you know about the extinct civilizations?" "Enough to know that 17 of them left warnings about Earth. Enough to know that Command has been hiding something from us." The bridge fell silent. Marcus could hear the hum of the ship's engines, the soft beeping of the navigation systems. Outside the windows, the dead planet of Kepler 438b turned slowly below them. "There's something else," Hayes continued. "Long-range sensors have picked up something unusual. Every human colony in this sector has reported the same thing. People are having dreams. Strange dreams about something sleeping underground." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What kind of dreams?" "Dreams about watching, about standing guard, about something that must never be allowed to wake up." Kate grabbed Marcus's arm. "It's starting. Whatever happened to the other civilizations, it's starting to happen to us." Commander Hayes nodded grimly. "Set course for Earth. Maximum speed." As the Aurora turned away from the dead world, Marcus stared at the crystal in his hands. The lights inside seemed to pulse faster now, as if responding to something he couldn't understand. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could almost hear a voice whispering, "The sleeper stirs. The watchers remember." The guard must hold. The journey home would take them 6 days. Marcus had a feeling that by the time they reached Earth, everything would be different. The question was, would they be ready for what they found? The Aurora docked at Luna Station 6 days later. Marcus had barely slept during the journey home. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Caleri crystal pulsing with its strange inner light. The dreams had gotten worse, too. Not just for him, but for the entire crew. They all reported the same thing. Visions of standing watch over something deep underground, something that moved restlessly in ancient sleep. Commander Hayes led Marcus and Kate through the station's corridors toward the military section. Luna Station was huge, a city floating in space that served as humanity's main hub for deep space operations. Thousands of people lived and worked here, but today the halls seemed unusually quiet. "Admiral Coleman is waiting for us," Hayes said, as they walked. "He's been in charge of the Deep Space Exploration Program for 20 years. If anyone knows what's really going on, it's him." They took a lift down to level 7, the secure military floors. Guards checked their identification 3 times before allowing them to pass. Finally, they reached a door marked Terran Defense Command, classification level Alpha. Admiral Jack Coleman was a heavy-set man with gray hair and tired eyes. His office was filled with star charts, mission reports, and what looked like artifacts from a dozen different worlds. He stood up when they entered, but Marcus could see the weight of some terrible knowledge in his posture. "Dr. Wright, Dr. Morrison," the Admiral said, shaking their hands. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss." Marcus placed the Calleri crystal on the Admiral's desk. Coleman picked it up, turning it over in his weathered hands. "Another one," he said quietly. "That makes 18 different civilizations, all with the same message. You knew?" Kate asked. "You knew about the warnings?" Coleman nodded. "We've known for 200 years. Ever since the first human ships reached the outer systems and found the ruins of the Centauri Empire, they left the same message about Earth, about something we guard." The Admiral moved to a wall display and activated it. Images of dead worlds peered one after another. Ruined cities, empty space stations, silent monuments to civilizations that no longer existed. "Every deep space mission has found them," Coleman continued. "Dead civilizations, all advanced, all gone without a trace. And every single one left warnings about Earth, about us." Marcus felt sick to his stomach. How many people know about this? A few dozen. The President, the Joint Chiefs, the heads of the major space agencies. We've kept it classified because we didn't understand what it meant. Coleman paused. Until now. He pressed another button on the display. New images appeared. These were from Earth. Ancient structures. The Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, the temples of Angkor Wat, the Nazca Lines. Dr. Alex Turner has been studying these sites for the past 5 years, Coleman said. "Show them what you found, Alex." A door opened and a thin man with dark hair entered the room. Dr. Turner carried a briefcase full of documents and photographs. He spread them across the Admiral's desk. "Every major ancient structure on Earth has the same purpose," Turner said without introduction. "They're not temples or tombs or astronomical calendars. They're reinforcements." "Reinforcements for what?" Marcus asked. Turner pulled out a photograph showing underground passages beneath the Great Pyramid. "There's a network of structures underneath every continent. Older than human civilization. Much older. The pyramids, the stone circles, even modern cities are all built on top of them, adding weight and stability." Kate leaned forward to look at the photographs. "You're saying ancient humans built monuments to reinforce something underground?" "Not just ancient humans. Every human civilization has done it. The Romans built their aqueducts along specific lines. Medieval cathedrals follow the same pattern. Modern skyscrapers are concentrated in the exact same areas." Turner's voice was getting faster, more excited. "It's like we've been unconsciously following a blueprint for thousands of years." Admiral Coleman activated another display. This one showed a map of the world with red dots, marking major construction projects throughout history. The pattern was clear. Every major human building project formed part of a vast geometric network spanning the entire planet. 3 months ago, we sent Captain Ryan Foster to investigate some sonar readings in the Mariana Trench, Coleman said. "Show them what Foster found." The display changed to show underwater footage. In the depths of the ocean, massive metal structures were visible, covered in strange symbols and pulsing with a faint blue light. The structures formed a grid that extended as far as the cameras could see. "It's not just in the Mariana Trench," Coleman continued. "Ground-penetrating radar shows similar structures under every continent. They form a cage around something at the center of the Earth." Marcus stared at the images. "A cage? You mean a prison?" "That's what we think. The question is, what are we keeping locked up?" Dr. Turner spread out more photographs. These showed symbols carved into ancient stones, symbols that matched the ones on the underwater structures. Every ancient human culture has stories about sleeping gods, about things that must not be awakened. The Greeks called them Titans. The Norse called them the Old Ones. The Aborigines spoke of the Dreamtime prisoners. They're all talking about the same thing, Kate realized. Something trapped under the Earth. Admiral Coleman nodded grimly. "And according to the alien warnings, we're the guards." Humanity's real purpose isn't to explore space or build civilizations. We're prison wardens, and we don't even know it. Marcus picked up the Kolari crystal again. The lights inside seemed brighter now, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. If this is true, why are the other civilizations extinct? What happened to them? We think they learned the truth, Coleman said. And somehow, knowing about the prisoner makes the prison weaker. As if responding to his words, the crystal in Marcus's hands suddenly flared with brilliant light. Everyone in the room shielded their eyes. When the light faded, they could hear something new. A faint humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. What was that? Kate whispered. Admiral Coleman was already moving toward his communications console. Red warning lights were flashing across multiple displays. All stations, report status immediately. Voices crackled through the speakers. Reports were coming in from around the world. The ancient structures were all showing increased activity. The underground network was awakening. "Sir," came a voice from Mission Control. "We're reading massive energy spikes from every major archaeological site on Earth. Whatever's down there, it's responding to something." Marcus looked at the crystal in his hands, then at the faces of the people around him. They had found the truth, but at what cost? "Admiral," he said quietly, "I think we've made a terrible mistake. The other civilizations didn't just learn about the prisoner. They learned that knowledge itself is the key that unlocks the cage." The humming sound grew louder. Somewhere deep beneath their feet, something ancient was beginning to stir. The prison was weakening, and they were the ones who had turned the key. Admiral Coleman reached for the emergency communication system. "This is Coleman. Authorization. Alpha 77. Begin immediate implementation of Protocol Sentinel. All personnel to stations. This is not a drill." The hunt for truth had begun. But Marcus was starting to fear that some truths were too dangerous to know. Dr. Susan Blake had been studying ocean life for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The research vessel Neptune floated above the Mariana Trench. Its instruments pointed down into the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. What? They were detecting defied everything she knew about marine biology. "The energy readings are off the charts," she told Captain Ryan Foster as they stood on the ship's bridge. "Whatever is down there, it's been dormant for millions of years. But now it's waking up." Foster was a career military man, used to dealing with problems he could see and shoot at. The invisible threat lurking 7 miles beneath the ocean surface made him nervous. "Any idea what we're dealing with?" Susan pulled up the sonar images on her tablet. The structures they had discovered 3 months ago were much larger than anyone had first realized. A metal latticework extended for hundreds of miles in every direction, forming a geometric pattern that hurt to look at for too long. "It's not just metal," she said. "There are organic components woven throughout the structure, almost like the whole thing is alive." "Alive?" "The energy signature matches biological processes, but on a scale we've never seen before. If I didn't know better, I'd say the entire ocean floor is one massive organism." Foster's communication device buzzed with an urgent message from Admiral Coleman. The text was brief but alarming. "Lattice activity increasing worldwide. Prepare for immediate evacuation, if necessary." Meanwhile, in the research labs beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Amy Carter was making discoveries that would change everything. She had been brought in to study the energy patterns from the underground structures, using quantum sensors that could detect particles moving faster than light. "This is impossible," she muttered, staring at her computer screen. The data showed that the lattice network existed in multiple dimensions at once. Parts of it seemed to phase in and out of normal spacetime. Her assistant, a young physicist named Tom, looked over her shoulder at the readings. "What does it mean?" "It means we're not looking at a normal structure. This thing exists partially. outside our reality. It's like someone built a cage that spans multiple universes. Amy's hands shook as she typed commands into her computer. The more data she gathered, the more frightening the picture became. The lattice wasn't just containing something physical. It was holding back something that existed in the spaces between dimensions. Tom, call Dr. Turner. Tell him we need to talk to Admiral Coleman immediately. In a bunker deep beneath the Pentagon, Colonel Greg Miller was coordinating reports from around the world. Every major city was reporting the same phenomenon. Electronic equipment was failing. Compasses spun wildly, and people were experiencing mass nightmares. Sir, his aide reported, we're getting calls from Tokyo, London, Moscow, and São Paulo, all reporting the same symptoms. People are dreaming about something huge moving underground. Miller studied the global map displayed on the wall. Red dots marked every location where unusual activity had been reported. The pattern was clear. The disturbances followed the same lines as the ancient construction sites Dr. Turner had identified. It's like the whole planet is connected by invisible wires, Miller said, and something is pulling on all of them at once. His secure phone rang. It was Admiral Coleman calling from Luna Station. Greg, we need to talk. How bad is it down there? Bad and getting worse. The magnetic field is fluctuating every few hours. We've had 3 satellite failures in the past day. And the dreams are spreading. Dreams? Everyone's having the same dream. They see themselves standing guard over something. Watching. Waiting. Some people are waking up with their hands bleeding, like they've been clawing at stone walls all night. Coleman was quiet for a long moment. Greg, I need you to pull all the historical data on human migration patterns. Every major population movement in the past 10,000 years. Why? Because I think we're going to find that every time this lattice system gets unstable, humans instinctively move to reinforce it. We've been responding to this thing our entire history without even knowing it. Dr. Susan Blake was still on the Neptune when the ocean began to change. The water around their ship started to glow with a faint blue light. Fish were swimming in strange patterns, forming circles and spirals that matched the geometry of the structures below. Captain, she called to Foster, you need to see this. Foster joined her at the rail. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, but now it looked different. The water seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat, and strange shadows moved just beneath the surface. What are those? Foster asked, pointing at dark shapes that seemed to be rising from the deep. Susan adjusted her binoculars. They're not fish. They're too big, and they're moving too purposefully. As they watched, more shapes appeared. They were massive, each one the size of a whale, but they moved in perfect formation. They rose from the depths and arranged themselves in a circle around the research vessel. Captain, the ship's sonar operator called out, you need to hear this. Foster and Susan rushed to the sonar station. The operator handed them headphones connected to the underwater microphones. Listen, he said through the headphones. They could hear something that made their blood run cold. It wasn't the usual sounds of ocean life. It was a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, but infinitely slow and deep. And underneath that rhythm, something else. A sound that might have been breathing, if the thing doing the breathing was the size of a continent. How long has this been going on? Foster asked. It started about an hour ago. Right around the time the lattice energy spiked, Susan removed her headphones with shaking hands. Captain, I don't think those structures down there are a prison. I think they're life support. What do you mean? The breathing sounds, the heartbeat, the way the entire system responds as one unit. What if we're not guarding something that's locked up? What if we're taking care of something that's sleeping? Before Foster could respond, his communication device buzzed with an emergency message from Admiral Coleman. All ships evacuate Mariana Trench immediately. lattice instability reaching critical levels. But as the Neptune tried to move away from the area, they discovered something terrifying. The dark shapes surrounding them weren't just watching. They were holding the ship in place. Engines are at full power, the ship's engineer reported, but we're not moving. Foster grabbed the radio. This is Captain Foster to all stations. We are being held in position by unknown entities. Repeat. We cannot leave the area. Dr. Susan Blake looked down into the glowing water and realized the horrible truth. The creatures surrounding them weren't guards or prisoners. They were part of the system itself, living components of a machine designed to keep something asleep. And now that machine was beginning to wake up. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we're about to meet our employer." Far below them, in the deepest parts of the ocean, something that had been dreaming for millions of years began to open its eyes. The ice beneath Antarctica had hidden its secrets for millions of years. Dr. Pete Williams and his team had been drilling for 3 weeks, following energy readings that led them deeper than any human had ever gone before. The tunnel they carved through the ice was perfectly round, almost 2 miles deep, and filled with a strange blue light that seemed to come from nowhere. "Temperature readings are impossible," reported Dr. Jenny Walsh, the team's geologist. "It should be freezing down here, but it's actually getting warmer as we go deeper." Commander Beth Rogers checked her equipment one more time before rappelling down into the tunnel. She was a military officer trained for dangerous missions, but something about this place made her nervous. The walls of ice seemed to pulse with their own rhythm, like the heartbeat of some massive creature. "Radio check," she called up to the surface team. "We hear you loud and clear," came Pete's voice through the comm system. "What do you see down there?" Beth looked around with her flashlight. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber carved from solid ice. But this wasn't natural ice. The walls were covered with symbols and patterns that hurt to look at directly. And at the center of the chamber stood something that shouldn't exist. "Pete, you need to get down here, now." The structure in the center of the chamber was made of the same blue-silver material as the Kalari memory crystal. It rose from the floor like a twisted tree, its branches reaching up toward the ceiling. But unlike any tree Beth had ever seen, this one was filled with preserved bodies. Dr. Pete Williams arrived 15 minutes later, followed by Jenny and the rest of the team. They stood in silence, staring at the impossible sight before them. "Those aren't human," Jenny whispered. She was right. The bodies suspended in the crystal branches came from dozens of different species. Some were tall and thin, with 4 arms. Others were covered in scales or fur. A few looked almost human, but with features that were just wrong enough to be disturbing. "They're from the extinct civilizations," Pete realized. "Representatives from every species that vanished from the galaxy." Beth moved closer to examine. The bodies, they weren't dead, she realized. They were sleeping. Their eyes moved beneath closed lids, and she could see the slow rise and fall of breathing. "They're alive," she said. "All of them." Dr. Carl Mason, the team's archaeologist, was studying the symbols on the walls. He had spent years learning the languages of dead civilizations, and what he saw here made his blood run cold. "These aren't prison walls," he said. "These are records, histories. Each symbol represents a choice." "What kind of choice?" Pete asked. Carl pointed to a section of the wall where the symbols were arranged in 2 columns. "This one says, remember and die. This one says, forget and serve." Every civilization that came here had to make the same decision. Beth understood first. They chose to serve. They gave up their homeworlds and came here to help maintain the prison. "Not a prison," Carl corrected, still reading the symbols. "A nursery." The word hung in the air like a curse. Pete felt his legs go weak. "What do you mean, nursery?" Carl's face was pale, as he translated more of the ancient text. The entity down here isn't a prisoner. It's a child. An infant member of a race that existed before the universe began. And these civilizations didn't come to guard it. They came to take care of it while it grows. Jenny was taking readings with her instruments. The energy signature from this chamber matches what we detected at the ocean sites. Whatever is down here, it's connected to the lattice network around the entire planet. How big is it? Beth asked. The energy readings suggest something the size of North America, maybe bigger. But it's not just one creature. It's like a whole ecosystem, with this chamber as the central nervous system. Pete activated his communication device to contact Admiral Coleman, but instead of the Admiral's voice, he heard something else. A soft humming sound, almost like a lullaby. And underneath that, voices speaking in languages he didn't recognize. "Are you getting this?" he asked. His team they all nodded. The voices were coming from the suspended bodies in the crystal tree. They were singing or praying, or maybe just talking to something that couldn't answer back. Dr. Carl Mason found more symbols near the base of the tree. These were different from the others, newer somehow. "This section is recent," he said. "Maybe. Only a few thousand years old. It talks about the guardians who forget." Guardians who forget? Humans. It says that the builders chose humanity because we have a unique ability. We can suppress memories across generations. Other species would eventually be driven mad by the responsibility of caring for something this vast and alien. But humans can forget, even while we continue to do the work. Beth felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "You're saying we've been taking care of this thing without knowing it?" Every construction project, every city built, every time humans gather in large groups, we unconsciously add to the network that keeps it stable and asleep. Jenny was still taking readings when her instruments started going crazy. Energy spike incoming. Something big is about to happen. The crystal tree began to glow brighter. The bodies suspended within it started moving more actively, their eyes opening and closing as if they were having intense dreams. And from somewhere far below, they could hear a new sound, the slow, deep breathing of something unimaginably large. "It's waking up," Pete said. Carl was still translating symbols, working faster now. "No, not waking up, growing up." The text says, "It's been in a growth phase for millions of years, but something is accelerating the process." What? Knowledge. The more people who know about it, the faster it develops. Our discovery of the truth is like feeding it information. Beth grabbed her radio. "All stations, this is Rogers. We need immediate evacuation. The situation down here is critical." But, as she spoke, the entrance tunnel above them began to change. The ice was reshaping itself, sealing them inside the chamber. "We're trapped," Jenny said. Carl found one final section of symbols. His face went white as he read them. "What does it say?" Pete demanded. "It says that when the child is ready to be born, the caretakers have to make a choice. Stay and help it enter the world, or leave and let it destroy everything trying to break free on its own." The crystal tree pulsed with brilliant light. The voices of the sleeping guardians grew louder, more urgent. And from the depths below, something that had been dreaming for eons began to stir with the first movements of awakening consciousness. They were no longer just discovering the truth. They were becoming part of it. Dr. Rachel Stone stood in the command center of the Global Monitoring Station in Colorado, watching as every screen around her flashed red. The lattice network that surrounded the planet was failing, and she could see the cascade effect spreading across all continents in real time. "Energy output is up 300% in the last hour," she reported to General Tony Brooks, who had arrived from the Pentagon, an emergency helicopter. "Every ancient site on Earth is showing critical instability." Brooks studied the displays. showing the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and dozens of other locations. Each one was pulsing with the same blue light that the research teams had found in the ocean and under Antarctica. But now the light was getting brighter, more violent. What happens if the network completely fails? Brooks asked. Rachel's hands shook as she pulled up the projection models. According to our calculations, reality itself will begin to break down. The entity has been dreaming for so long that its unconscious mind has been shaping the laws of all physics around Earth. If it wakes up suddenly, those laws might not hold. As if to prove her point, reports started coming in from around the world. In Tokyo, gravity was fluctuating wildly, causing cars to float several feet off the ground for minutes at a time. In London, Big Ben was running backwards, and people were aging in reverse for short periods. In New York, the Hudson River was flowing uphill. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station, "we're receiving reports of temporal anomalies. Worldwide. Time is moving at different speeds in different locations." General Brooks grabbed his secure phone and dialed Admiral Coleman on Luna Station. "Jack, how much time do we have?" "Based on the energy readings, maybe 6 hours before complete system failure." Coleman's voice crackled through the static. "The teams in Antarctica and the Mariana Trench have gone silent. We have to assume they've been absorbed into the entity's consciousness." Dr. Helen Price had been working non-stop in her laboratory for the past 3 days, trying to find a solution to the crisis. She was a specialist in quantum mechanics and temporal physics, brought in when the situation became clear that normal science couldn't explain what was happening. "I think I found something," she announced as she burst into the command center. Her hair was messy and her clothes wrinkled from lack of sleep, but her eyes were bright with discovery. "What is it?" Brooks demanded. Helen spread blueprints and calculations across the central table. "The original builders left a failsafe. Reset protocol built into the lattice network itself." Rachel looked at the complex diagrams. "What kind of reset?" "It would put the entity back into deep sleep and repair the containment system. But there's a cost." "What cost?" Helen's face was grim. "All knowledge of the entity's existence would be erased from human memory. Every record, every discovery, every person who learned the truth would forget completely." General Brooks studied the blueprints. "That's not the worst part, is it?" "No. Someone has to stay aware to activate the system. One person has to remember everything while the rest of humanity forgets. They become the permanent guardian, watching over the entity forever." The command center fell silent, except for the beeping of alarms and the crackling of radio reports. Outside, the sky was beginning to change color as the fabric of reality weakened. How long would this guardian have to watch? Brooks asked. "Forever. Or until the entity naturally outgrows its need for the containment system, which could be millions of years." Rachel pulled up the global monitoring data. "The cascade failure is accelerating. We're seeing reality breaks in major population centers now. If we don't do something in the next hour, the damage might be irreversible." Reports continued to flood in from around the world. In Australia, the Sydney Opera House was existing in 3 different time periods simultaneously. In Brazil, the Amazon River was flowing in perfect geometric patterns that spelled out words and languages that no human could read. In Russia, Moscow was experiencing snow that fell upward and melted into stars. Dr. Marcus Wright's voice suddenly came through the communication system from Antarctica. "Command, this is Wright. Can anyone hear me?" "Marcus." Rachel grabbed the microphone. "We thought you were lost. What's your status?" "We're alive, but not in the way you'd understand. The entity has been showing us its memories. We've seen the birth of galaxies, the death of universes. It's not malevolent, Rachel. It's just growing up. Marcus, we need you to get out of there. We found a way to stop this. There was a long pause before Marcus replied. I know about the reset protocol. We all do now. The entity showed us. But Rachel, you have to understand. This thing isn't a monster. It's a child learning about existence. And we're its teachers. General Brooks took the microphone. Dr. Wright, what are you saying? I'm saying that maybe the cascade failure isn't an accident. Maybe it's time for the child to wake up. The other civilizations didn't die, General. They chose to become part of something bigger. Helen grabbed the microphone from Brooks. Marcus, listen to me. If the entity fully awakens without proper containment, it will reshape reality according to its understanding. Human consciousness, human existence as we know it, will cease to exist. Or it will become something better, Marcus replied. Something beyond what we can imagine. The screens around the command center showed that the reality breaks were spreading. Faster. Entire cities were beginning to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The laws of physics were becoming more like suggestions. We're out of time, Rachel announced. The cascade failure has reached critical mass. In 30 minutes, the breaks will become permanent. Helen activated the reset protocol systems. I can start the sequence now, but we need someone to volunteer. For permanent guardian duty. General Brooks looked around the room. Every person there understood what that meant. One of them would have to sacrifice their connection to humanity forever, watching over the sleeping entity while everyone they loved forgot they ever existed. I'll do it, came Marcus's voice from Antarctica. I'm already connected to the entity's consciousness. The transition would be easier for me. Marcus, no, Rachel said. There has to be another way. There isn't. And Rachel, you need to start the reset now. I can feel the entity stirring. It's about to open its eyes for the first time in millions of years. Helen's hand hovered over the activation switch. Once she pressed it, there would be no going back. Marcus would become eternal guardian of something beyond human understanding, and the rest of humanity would never know what he sacrificed that the reality breaks reached the Colorado facility. Through the windows, they could see the sky splitting open like glass, revealing glimpses of alien stars and impossible colors. Do it, Marcus said, before it's too late. Helen pressed the switch. Around the world, the ancient network began to glow with new purpose, preparing to sing humanity's greatest secret back into the darkness of forgotten dreams. The reset began with silence. Dr. Marcus Wright stood alone in the crystal chamber beneath Antarctica, watching as the blue light faded from the walls around him. The voices of the sleeping guardians had gone quiet. The breathing of the massive entity below had slowed to barely a whisper. Above him, he knew that Commander Lisa Hayes and Dr. Kate Morrison were forgetting everything they had discovered together. The reset waves spread across the planet like invisible fire. In the Colorado Command Center, Dr. Rachel Stone blinked and looked around in confusion. She was standing in front of a computer displaying weather patterns, but she couldn't remember why she was there. General Tony Brooks was beside her, checking his watch and frowning. Strange, Brooks muttered. I could have sworn I had an important meeting, but I can't remember what about. Dr. Helen Price was in her laboratory, staring at equations on a whiteboard that made no sense to her anymore. The formulas dealt with quantum mechanics and temporal physics, but she couldn't understand why she had written them. With a shrug, she erased the board and went back to her normal research. Around the world, the same thing was happening. In Tokyo, people stopped looking up at the sky and went back to their daily lives. In London, the crowds around Big Ben dispersed, no longer interested in the clock tower. In New York, the tourists returned to taking pictures and buying souvenirs, unaware that reality itself had been bent and twisted just hours before. The ancient structures stopped glowing. The pyramids returned to being simple tourist attractions. Stonehenge became just old rocks arranged in a circle. The mysterious energy readings disappeared from scientific instruments, leaving behind only normal geological data. But deep beneath the ice in Antarctica, Marcus Wright remembered everything. He could feel the entity's presence like a warm blanket around his mind. It was vast beyond human understanding, older than galaxies, but still somehow innocent. A child of beings that had existed before the universe began, learning about existence through dreams that lasted millions of years. "Hello," Marcus said to the darkness around him. The reply came not in words, but in feelings and images. The entity was curious about him, this small, warm creature that had chosen to stay when all the others forgot. It showed him visions of the previous guardians, beings from 1,000 different worlds who had made the same choice across millions of years. He saw the first guardian, a crystalline being from a world of living glass. It had watched over the entity for 500,000 years, before finally joining its consciousness completely. He saw the Kalari guardian, one of the last of their species, who had sung lullabies to the dreaming child for 300,000 years. All of them had been honored. All of them had been remembered by the entity, even after their physical forms had faded away. They existed now as part of something greater, their memories and personalities preserved in the vast network of the entity's mind. Will I become like them? Marcus asked not the answer, him as warmth and acceptance. Yes, eventually, but not for a very long time. The entity was patient. It understood that guardians needed to remain themselves for as long as possible, to maintain their connection to the smaller, faster world above. Marcus walked through the chamber, looking at the crystal trees that held the sleeping representatives of extinct civilizations. They weren't dead or trapped. They were dreaming along with the entity, helping to shape its understanding of life and consciousness. They had chosen to become teachers rather than remain separate. Above ground, humanity went about its business without any memory of the crisis that had nearly ended their world. Construction crews returned to their projects, unknowingly reinforcing the ancient network that kept the entity stable. Architects designed buildings according to aesthetic principles that were actually guided by unconscious knowledge of the lattice requirements. Children played games that mimicked the geometric patterns necessary for containment. Artists painted and sculpted works that strengthened the barriers between dimensions. Musicians composed melodies that resonated with the entity's dreams, keeping them peaceful and calm. Humanity's greatest strength, Marcus realized, was not their ability to explore or fight or build great civilizations. It was their ability to forget dangerous knowledge while still acting on it instinctively. Other species would be driven mad by the responsibility of caring for something so vast and alien. But humans could serve as guardians without the burden of conscious awareness. The entity showed him more visions. He saw the future spreading out in countless possibilities. In some timelines, humanity would eventually develop technology advanced, enough to help the entity mature properly. In others, they would choose to join its consciousness as the other civilizations had done. In a few, they would remain as they were, faithful guardians who never quite understood what they protected. How long? Marcus asked. How long will you need to grow? The answer came as images of stars being born and dying, of galaxies spinning through space, of time itself flowing like a river. The entity would need millions of years to reach maturity. Maybe tens of millions. Its growth was measured not in human lifespans, but in the rise and fall of entire species. Marcus felt a strange peace settle over him. His sacrifice had meaning beyond anything he could have achieved in a normal life. He was not just a guardian, but a bridge between humanity and something magnificent beyond human understanding. The crystal chamber began to change around him. The walls grew more comfortable, more suited to human needs. The entity was adapting the space for its new guardian, just as it had done for all the others throughout the eons. "Thank you," Marcus said to the darkness. The reply came as overwhelming gratitude and love. The entity cherished its guardians above all else. They were the ones who chose to remember, to watch, to care for something that could not care for itself. They were heroes in a way that no song would ever celebrate. No history would ever record. Outside, the world moved on. Dr. Rachel Stone published papers on climate patterns. Dr. Helen Price made breakthroughs in quantum mechanics. Commander Lisa Hayes led new expeditions to distant worlds, always driven by a vague feeling that she was searching for something important, though she could never quite remember what. They lived full lives, made discoveries, fell in love, raised families, and died peacefully, never knowing that their greatest adventure had been erased from their memories. And deep beneath the ice, Marcus Wright kept his eternal watch, surrounded by the dreams of a sleeping god and the gratitude of a universe that would never know how. Close it had come to ending. In the crystalline walls around him, new symbols appeared, future warnings for future civilizations who might one day discover the truth. The same message that had been left by every guardian who came before him. Beware. The pale world, third from its star. They guard something worse than death itself. But Marcus knew better now. They didn't guard something worse than death. They guarded something more wonderful than life. And that made all the difference. The entity settled deeper into its dreams, secure in the knowledge that its newest guardian understood the true nature of their sacred duty. Above them, humanity continued its ancient work, building and creating and strengthening the bonds that held the universe together. The watch continued. The dream endured. And somewhere in the darkness, something magnificent continued to grow.